to receive input for the design of these two options. Many investors are interested in these options, and I'm sure investors will participate if we offer a commercially sound product. However, it should be clear that we do not expect investors to commit large amounts of money the next few days or weeks. Leverage is a process over time. We only need to mobilize resources if and when we need to support a member state and when we use our new instruments. But the EFSF is now ready to implement both approaches. We will use both options simultaneously. The final amount of firepower will depend upon the concrete use and mix of the instruments and the exact degree of protection, somewhere between 20 and 30%. Deployment of either instrument using leverage will only be made following a request from a member state, and any support from the EFSF will be linked to strict policy conditionality, monitoring and surveillance procedures. Finally, let me say that the EFSF has also increased its funding flexibility. We plan to enter for the first time the short-term market in December, and we will begin to start pre-financing the next Irish tranche, which will be paid out in mid-January. Thank you.
Okay, questions, please. Yes.
Anton LaGuardia of The Economist. Can you say what it is that you would like the IMF to do in terms of contributing, increasing its funds? Could you spell out what it is that you would actually like them to do? And on Belgium, Mr. Rehn, can you say whether Belgium is now out of your list of possible sanctions countries that you gave a few days ago? Thank you.
As regards your first question concerning the increase of IMF resources, the European Union has, and all the EU member states together, for instance, in the G20 summit in Cannes, we supported and tried to advance an agreement on an increase of IMF resources, either through bilateral loans or through new SDR allocations. This is still pending, and I just want to underline that the European Union and the Commission is supportive of increasing the resources of the IMF. And I think we see pretty much eye to eye with Managing Director Christine Lagarde in this regard. As to Belgium, we welcome the budget agreement reached over the weekend, which is bringing the budget deficit below 3% next year. The more exact figure is 2.8%. We are still studying the concrete details of the agreement. It's a very specific and concrete agreement for which the parties behind the agreement have to be commended because they have done very precise and proper work. And my intention is to meet shortly with Mr. Elio Di Rupo in order to discuss this further and to see what is indeed in concrete terms and concrete figures behind the budget and the fiscal deficit of 2.8%. So at this stage, I can only say that it's certainly a very significant step to the right direction. But as always, we want to reserve our right to verify the concrete details before making any final assessment.
Oui.
Two questions, one from President Juncker. Can you tell us if you are working on a possibility of a safety network that involves ECB and IMF to avoid the liquidity crisis that Italy or Spain can face in the future? And then a question for Commissioner Rehn about Italy. You were saying that further fiscal consolidation is needed. If you can quantify a little bit more, if we are talking about something around 20 billion euros or not for 2011. Thank you.
As concerns
Di liquidité en Italie et en Espagne.
la vérité est que je pense à la Grèce jour et nuit, ce qui fait que lorsqu'on me pose une question sur un autre pays, je réponds sur la Grèce. Je n'ai pas de souci particulier à me faire au sujet de l'Italie, mais nous ferons tout ce qui doit être fait pour faire en sorte que la stabilité financière soit assurée. Je ne peux pas me prononcer au nom de la Banque centrale européenne, dont vous connaissez la sensibilité lorsque quelqu'un s'approche de tout près de son indépendance. Oli.
As regards Italy, due to the somewhat weaker growth outlook than originally forecast, there is a certain need of taking further measures of fiscal consolidation to meet the path of fiscal adjustment towards the balanced budget of 2013, to which Prime Minister Monti and his government have been fully committed. We are currently assessing the specifics of this in terms of the impact of the somewhat weaker growth outlook on fiscal policy. And I know that the government is currently assessing the needs and the likely measures in order to meet this fiscal gap. And we work in partnership with the government in order to support it meeting this objective. And I expect that the Italian government will indeed meet its objective and stick to its commitment of achieving a balanced budget in 2013 and stay on the path towards that objective next year, 2012.
Alvise Armelini from DPA, the German press agency. I had a question on the EFSF. So you said the final firepower will depend on market conditions, but we had a specific target figure of 1 billion. You didn't mention it. So 1 trillion, sorry. So does that mean it will not be attained? And also on the issue of these bilateral loans to the IMF, who exactly is loaning the money? Is it all the Eurozone, only some Eurozone countries? On what basis? Thank you.
As I tried to explain, it's really not possible to give one number for leverage because it's a process. It depends. Do you look at 1 year, the next 2 or 3 years? We do not need even 100 billion next month. We will need money as we go along. If some member states asked for assistance, they have to make a request. So all this is unpredictable, and market conditions will also change over time. So that's why it's not possible to give one number.
Sorry, it was on the IMF. The loans to the IMF, who gives the loans? All the Eurozone, just some countries? And also to do what? Thank you.
That's something that, of course, needs to be discussed with the IMF, and this work is in progress. And we are together with the IMF consulting potential contributors through bilateral loans. But among the euro area member states, there is very broad support to increase the IMF resources through bilateral loans, and therefore the euro area member states are themselves behind this option.
Last question, yes.
David Carretta, Radio Radicale. Est-ce qu'il y a aussi des institutions européennes et pas seulement des États européens candidats pour des bilateral loans au Fonds monétaire international?
I have not seen any European institution to volunteer as a contributor of bilateral loans so far. It's mainly a matter for the member states of all the euro area member states or the EU member states.
It's late and tomorrow is another day. Good night. Je suis vraiment crevé. Hein?